Mr. President,
Senator
the home
from
state of
Indiana.
Indiana is America's heartland. I have traveled to every county, listened to businesses, schools, churches. I think that's where we need to get our cue in terms of what needs to be done. Farmers as well, they're in the middle of something that they've never faced before, probably the toughest job in business out there, never been tougher. The American people are strong and resilient, but they are represented by a government here that is not necessarily the same. Sometimes gets scoffed at, but they live within their household budgets. State and local governments have guardrails, but naturally would do it anyway, because they know you can't borrow money from future generations and spend it today. Bad business plan. For this reason, I think the U.S. Congress is broken, because we have kept shoving this issue down the road. Haven't done a budget that we've adhered to in nearly 20 years. The last time we did it, we were most ingenious about how to unravel it, roughly 10 years ago. When they look at our capital, they see a twisted knot of lobbyists, corporate interests, and a mountain of debt that just gets higher and higher. We now spend over $1 trillion more each year than we take in. And recently, that's gone up to $1.5 trillion. To normalize that just does not make sense. We are here twiddling our thumbs while our kids and grandkids' future go up in smoke. Every American family is paying for our failures here. Congress as a whole, and particularly this body, seem to have no interest in turning this big ship away from the rocks. In the past year, I've brought to the floor 4 chances to do something. I offered a complete federal budget that would match our spending and our revenues that are historical in nature. Only 34 senators voted for it. It would have preserved Social Security, Medicare, defense, just bringing it in line with what's sustainable. I offered an amendment that if we fail to get our budget and appropriations bills done on time by the deadline, which is like in a few days for this year, we don't get paid until we do so. 47 senators voted for it. Close, but still not there. I offered an amendment to cut pet projects through earmarks from our huge spending bills. It only got 35 votes. And we were doing that for almost 10 years, and now we've actually backslid into that bad behavior. I've offered an amendment to require a balanced budget like so many states have. They live in fiscal sanity. 47 votes short again. The framers of our Constitution saw this coming. They had to raise revenue, especially back then, to do whatever they wanted to do. There were also checks and balances. Congress isn't just balanced by the Supreme Court and the President, but also by the states. Article 5 of our Constitution gives the states the power to pick up the slack when Congress refuses to act, where it doesn't exercise discipline, good behavior, what all of us expect. I believe the House and Senate desperately need 2 things. Term limits. The founders never imagined people would come here and like that better than what they did before. Washington, Jefferson hurried back to their farms and their businesses. That's not the case anymore. If we keep doing it the way we are, we're going to get increasingly deeper in the hole. With term limits, we'd get a class of political entrepreneurs here that have actually done something in the real world before they think they can run the business, the biggest business in the world, and deliver such poor results. If 2/3 of the states petition to call a constitutional convention, we could take power away from the D.C. establishment and put it back in the hands of the American people. This plan is extremely popular because it makes sense. It puts political will and backbone into this place that we don't normally have. In a recent poll by Trafalgar found that 65% of likely voters agree with that. If you take either term limits or balanced budgets by themselves, it gets up close to 85 or 90%. And in this poll, 81% of Republicans, 63% of independents, who I think elect the swing state senators and the president, we ought to really be paying attention to them, and 50% of Democrats. There's no federal government body managing this process. It's too easy for Congress to ignore what the states have done. My amendment would be very, very simple. It would direct the archivist who has all these petitions somewhere in a drawer to publish it as they come in, so all of us can see what the people are thinking. We've conveniently just overlooked it or ignored it. It adds what we should all be for: transparency, having people be able to see what's going on here, and especially for something like this. America is the most powerful country in history because we are founded on the rock of the Constitution. So simple and direct, it can all be right in here. We need to pay more attention to it. Framers were also wise to have a tool for the people and the states when Congress refuses to act on things so critical. Considering how broken and dysfunctional this place is currently and the dire threats we face from our debt and inflation crisis, you would think now, more than at any other time in our country's history, that this would be at the forefront and we would at least give it to the states to weigh in and not hide it in a drawer somewhere. When each one of us swore in as senators, we didn't swear our allegiance to our political party. We did it to the Constitution. We didn't promise to support the Washington establishment. We did it to the people, to the Constitution. It is in support of the American people and in defense of the Constitution that I come here to the floor today. It's not going to be litigated on the floor today, but I can tell you, for the time that I'm here, I'm not going to let the American public forget it.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.